The city's Division of Code Enforcement has assigned a dedicated code officer in the Sullivant Avenue corridor. And I believe she's here tonight, so I want to introduce her. Please welcome Maggie Lafferty. Maggie, would you stand up?
In every city, there's a code that dictates how that city is maintained. But in cities like Columbus that are experiencing quick growth and change, how that code is enforced can have much farther-reaching consequences. As part of our ongoing coverage of Columbus development, I've been recently digging into code enforcement and how that plays a role in how the city is changing. While reporting for my last article, city officials invited me to spend a day tagging along with a code enforcement officer. That's when I met Margaret Lafferty.
There's a huge human aspect that you do have to say, this is my, this is what my job is. This is what I said I'm willing to do as an employee. This is what the rules are, and this is how I will enforce them.
Code enforcement officers are responsible for enforcing 5 city codes: housing, zoning, environmental, nuisance abatement, and graphics. Housing covers any violation that affects the buildings where people live, such as unattached gutters and bare wood. Zoning dictates what a property can be used for and how it's maintained, like whether the property is commercial or residential. The Code for Health, Sanitation, and Safety, which is also known as environmental, deals with violations such as high grass and weeds or trash on the property. Nuisance abatement focuses on vacant properties. And finally, the graphics code dictates how signs can or can't be used. Overall, there are 55 code enforcement officers. 10 of those officers are part of the proactive code enforcement teams. The other code enforcement officers are assigned to an area and are responsible for code violations within that area. Most code officers are not part of the proactive teams, meaning they can only write code violations for properties that already have a complaint through the 311 system. However, Lafferty's position is a bit of a special situation. She is both a proactive code enforcement officer and also has a geographic assignment, which gives her more flexibility in enforcing the code for her area, Sullivant Avenue.
I've already pre-done the inspection before, so this has already had orders written on it. And for bare wood, for broken concrete, so these are housing things. I've come out, I've talked with the tenants as well, letting them know I'm out here doing an inspection, but here's what we have to do. So we'll look at this from all different angles and we'll walk it. And then basically I just take photos of what I see. So I've got bare wood. Unprotected wood leads to rot and decay. Okay. So the longer we let it stay like this, the worse it gets. Yeah. So, when we come out, we do a full inspection. Even if I get that solid waste complaint, I come out and look at everything. Yeah. Instead of me coming out today for trash, next week for something else, I take it all, I take care of it all. I write broken concrete. These are tripping hazards on people's stairs. These people live here. Well, they're paying rent. They should be afforded minimum code standard. Yeah. You see where there's already damage on the soffit here at the gutters? Because that wood has rotted. You can see sky on the other side. Yeah. Well, what happens once that rots so much, it allows infestations from any kind. It's odd. Our job is really weird. If I say to this person, cut your grass and clean your grass, clean your yard, for some reason this person does it too. Yeah. So it's a nice trickle effect. Chain reaction. However, the chain reaction can work reverse, and this house isn't being taken care of, so then for the next, and it can work like that too.
I want to pause for a second to give a little bit of background into what Lafferty is talking about. The idea that she mentions is an idea that sprang from the broken windows theory. The theory began with an article penned by a political scientist and a criminologist in 1982 that argued that allowing a neighborhood's infrastructure to fall into disarray would cause crime to increase in that neighborhood. The theory has been controversial, to say the least. It was used to justify New York City's stop and frisk policy, which many critics said was used to target marginalized folks. The broken windows theory is most often used to justify increased policing in neighborhoods that are considered disorderly. However, Code enforcement officials have either explicitly mentioned or pointed to this theory multiple times when explaining why their job is important to the well-being of a neighborhood. More recent research has debunked much of the theory. Researchers from Northeastern University studied the effects of disorder on crime and on public health. They found that disorder does not have the effects outlined in the broken windows theory. One notable exception is with vacant properties. Studies have shown that boarding up vacant properties and maintaining green space around them led to a decrease in violent crime and an increase in perceived safety in the area. Vacant properties are certainly one of the issues facing the Sullivant area, but it's not the only one.
Tonight, I'm making new city commitments. First, we will build a new police substation for the Sullivant Avenue corridor.
In 2020, Ginther committed to several plans focusing solely on Sullivant Avenue, which runs through the Franklinton and Hilltop neighborhoods. That included creating a new police substation, dedicating $10 million to a streetscape improvement plan, improving food access for Hilltop, working to combat human trafficking, and assigning Maggie to the area, as you saw in the clip before. Altogether, the plan incorporates multiple departments within the city, including code enforcement and the Columbus Division of Police.
We work collectively, hand in hand with the Columbus Police Department.
The departments work together in several ways, including clearing encampments of unhoused people.
Part of the PACE team that I'm on they do homeless camps. It's right over here. I had the most intricate camp I've ever seen. Like it was something, and it's behind this advanced auto parts, and they lived in the woods back in here, and the people on the other side of the woods is houses, and they're all affected. They literally built fences on the other side of their house, on the other side, and cut their yard on, I guess at the time you're displacing, but you're also trying to change that situation, that one situation. I can't spend all my time on it, but I also will send them to the resources and get everybody to kind of attack it at all ends, and then we have to remove that camp.
In many ways, Maggie sees her role as one that is helping the area and the community within it.
I typically try to find that that's what I'm trying to do is help. I have to give you a violation, so obviously that's not the definition of help. But on the other hand, I also feel that like today I can educate you, show you what's needed from me. I guarantee you the people that live out here are like, why has these buildings been vacant forever? Well, that's what we do. We try to get people placed into homes, and find good, try to change the living environment so that they have the ability to safely and soundly live in these houses. That takes time. This house that was broken into 1 million times, that person, has gone in, fixed the house up, and somebody's going to be able to rent that. I've been in neighborhoods where I've come in and done an inspection and the whole entire neighborhood clapped while you left because you were dealing with a house that was drug dealers were selling out of it, and that affects the neighborhood.
But enforcing the code may also be hurting some. As Lafferty notes, there are also some really difficult moments on the job.
Well, there's plenty of times where, as a code officer, you have to put back on that compassion hat. Where you're dealing with somebody's emotions, like somebody's crying to you on the phone because that's the best spot they got. Thing I always say, and it's probably, I don't know if it's maybe to even be able to deal with it myself, but it's easier for me to do a vacate like that than it is to write somebody that doesn't have the financial means and the ability at all to fix it. Hurts your heart because you know that person doesn't have the ability, but to take somebody out of a home on an unsafe condition is easier for me to do than that.
While Lafferty clearly felt for cost-burdened residents, she had a different perspective when it came to the overall trends of disinvested areas.
So, I'm a property maintenance inspector. My job is to enforce minimum standards to maintain a property. there's no lie that we're sitting on Sullivan and it's not Bexley. You know, that it's not. But I'm also not over exaggerating the code to where the standard is above what I'm enforcing. You know, my overall job isn't to change the property value. My job is to make sure that the property's maintained at a minimum level. And that's the same thing I would enforce in my neighborhood, and it's the same thing I would enforce in Clintonville, and it's the same thing I would enforce when I was on Brent now, and it's the same thing I would enforce over here.
Lafferty mentioned that consistency multiple times throughout the day and said it is key to her job and helps protect her from seeming like she's playing favorites. From the limited examples I saw throughout my day with her, I will say that Lafferty seemed very even-handed in handing out code violations. However, there is some room for discretion. For example, this is what she had to say about the 311 system.
That 311 complaint system allows us not to, you know, put yourself in that loophole of strategically targeting and or targeting tenants or property owners, or it allows us to be able to go out and do a fair inspection and treat this property just like that one.
But it's a bit more complicated than that. Lafferty and other proactive officers can write a violation without a 311 complaint. And even for the other code enforcement officers, they can write additional violations on a property, even if it's not what they were originally called for. And on top of that, Maggie said that there's a certain level of judgment officers must use in deciding whether or not to write a violation at all.
You ever write something, you've got to be able to defend it and take it to a judge if they don't take care of it. So if I have a Reese cup wrapper in somebody's yard and that's what you're complaining about is there's trash. Well, technically the letter of the law says no solid waste, garbage, trash, debris.
Right.
But if you get there and it's just a few little items in the yard, that's where the education process comes in. So you're able to go up and talk to the property owner, but really, quite frankly, if I write it, it would go nowhere. At the end of the day, if I submit that to the city attorney, he's going to say, what do I have here on this road? And this is what you're bringing me.
And that's what Maggie says a lot of her job is, educating folks on what is and isn't allowed per the city code. But unfortunately for some, that education starts with receiving a violation. Thanks for coming along for the ride. And as always, we would love to know what you think. What do you think about the role that code enforcement is playing in Columbus? Comment below, or you can email us at hello@matternews.org.